Kutastasya madudvishaha Ratiraso bhavetivra Padayor vyasanardanaha Yatsevaya bhagavata Kutastasya madudvishaha Ratiraso bhavetivra Padayor vyasanardanaha Yatsevaya bhagavataha Kutastasya madudvishaha Ratiraso bhavetivra Padayor vyasanardanaha Yatsevaya bhagavata Kutastasya madudvishaha Ratiraso bhavetivra Padayor vyasanardanaha Yatsevaya bhagavata Kutastasya madudvishaha Ratiraso bhavetivra Padayor vyasanardanaha. What is she? Yatsevaya bhagavata Kutastasya madudvishaha Ratiraso bhavetivra Padayor vyasanardanaha. Yat to whom? Sevaya by service. Bhagavataha of the personality of Godhead. Kutastasya of the unchangeable. Madhudvishaha enemy of the Madhu Asura. Ratirasaha attachment in different relationships. Bhavet develops. Tira highly ecstatic. Padayo of the feet. Vyasana distresses. Ardanaha vanquishing. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. By serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is the unchangeable enemy of the Madhu demon, and whose service vanquishes one's material distresses. Purport. The association of a bona fide spiritual master, like the sage Maitreya, can be of absolute help in achieving transcendental attachment for the direct service of the Lord. The Lord is the enemy of the Madhu demon, or in other words, He is the enemy of the sufferings of His pure devotee. The word Rati Rasaha is significant in this verse. Service to the Lord is rendered in different transcendental mellows, relationships: neutral, active, friendly, parental, and nuptial. A living entity in the liberated position of transcendental service to the Lord becomes attracted to one of the above-mentioned mellows. And when one is engaged in transcendental loving service to the Lord, one's service attachment in the material world is automatically vanquished. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 2:59, Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. Om agyana turandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadah Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Kruna Sindhu Dinabando Jigapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Rangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haditye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Dhanavirga Swami Niti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. So the verse, by serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is the unchangeable enemy of the Madhu demon, and whose service vanquishes one's material distresses. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the association of a bona fide spiritual master is of absolute help in achieving the transcendental attachment for the service of the Lord. So the spiritual master is completely necessary for one to actually make advancement in life. There's a, maybe not in just material life. You could say somebody might make some material advancement just by working hard at some job and get some money, and the result of how much they get is depending on their karma. Or they might become like a rock star by studying other rock stars, stuff like this. But for achieving the goal of life, which isn't to become a rock star or a rich person or anything that is going to be taken away once this body's finished, but to achieve the goal of life, which is to be situated in one's eternal position as a servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that one needs a spiritual master. And that's the goal. Otherwise, what's the use? Everything else, like the Bhagavatam explains, and any activity, any work that one's doing, if it's not leading to attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's shrama eva hi kevalam, useless waste of time. Because whatever it is, then they're still going to be stuck here in this material world, getting another material body, dying again. Sometimes seems like they're enjoying, but really it's just that they're not suffering intensely. And then other times they're suffering intensely. So what's the use of any material activity or any activity that's not leading to attachment to the Lord? So if one wants to become attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and understand who He is, then they must actually surrender to a bona fide spiritual master. Let's see. Here's a purport from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 15, Text 16. This is the way to receive knowledge. One must submit oneself at the lotus feet of great personalities who can actually deliver transcendental knowledge. It is therefore said, Tasmad Gurum Prapadyata Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. One who is inquisitive to understand the highest goal and benefit of life must approach a spiritual master and surrender unto him. So this is described throughout the Vedas over and over again. Krishna also explains this in Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. This is Bhagavad Gita 4:34. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So the spiritual master, he imparts the truth to the disciple. And that truth is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone is eternally his servant. No one can be equal to or greater than him. And the way that they can learn how to serve him is through the scriptures that he gives. So this is the truth that the spiritual master gives to the disciple. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Krishna is the enemy of the Madhu demon, or in other words, he is the enemy of the sufferings of his pure devotee. So if one becomes a pure devotee of the Lord by serving a pure devotee of the Lord, then their sufferings are actually solved and mitigated. Whereas one can take up so many other activities to try to stop suffering, but this is also described in the Bhagavatam that the activities that the conditioned living entities engage in to stop suffering are worse than the suffering themselves. The so-called cure is actually worse than the suffering. And we see this in so many ways, like, okay, it's suffering to travel. So therefore, instead of, going by a cart and walking and things like this. We make a car. And now it's convenient. You've mitigated the suffering of traveling because you can go fast. So, but now we see what's the result. All day people spend, like Srila Prabhupada explained, zoom, 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 zoom. All day they're going back and forth in their cars, traveling from home to work for at least an hour, and then from work to wherever they're going to have lunch for maybe like 30 minutes, and then all the way back home for another hour. And that's if like someone's living a pretty like balanced life. So they mitigated the suffering of traveling, and now all they do is travel. But for many people, it's actually even more intense than that, because to own the car is an austerity in itself. So instead, they take a train for maybe 2 hours to go into a city and then back again. We've heard that example many times. So to mitigate the suffering of traveling by like an ox cart or walking, you make a car and you travel now all day. Now you work somewhere that's many states away and you go 14 hours over there. So it doesn't stop the suffering, it actually makes it worse. And then what happens? You make the car, now you've got to drill into the earth and get a bunch of fuel out, and then the fuel spills into the ocean and causes distress. And then you want fuel that another country has, so you go to help them be more free by taking all their fuel and killing everyone there. And so that's more distress. So like this, the activities they take to cure the suffering are even worse. We see people today, a lot of people we meet in colleges, they say they suffer from anxiety or depression, and then they take certain kinds of medicine. One of them, it's called a benzodiazepine. It's a category of anti-anxiety medicine. Like a lot of students I meet, they'll say that they've taken Xanax, so it's one of these medicines. And this one, this always stands out in my head as a big example of this, the cure being worse than the suffering. Because they take this medicine to stop having anxiety, and then what happens is that it may make them a little less anxious for some time, but then what happens after they take it for like 2 weeks or a couple weeks more, then every time that it starts going out of their system, like within a few hours, they feel more anxiety than they ever felt to begin with. So much so that people who try to get off of it, they're like crushed. You see them if they've been taking it for years and then try to go off of it, it's like you can see they just look like the personification of anxiety. They're just shaking, they're crazy. Some of them just die, they have like a stroke. So the cure is worse than the suffering itself. So if one wants to actually stop suffering, then they have to stop taking on a material body, because the material body, it's like the house of disease. We have this body, and it can feel so much pain. Like if someone just like pinches a really small part of like a less than a centimeter, or we've gotten even a splinter before. It's like you can't even see it, it's so small, but it hurts like a good deal. So just something that small in the body causes so much pain, but then how much enjoyment can the body really get? It's not that much when you compare it to how much pain it can get. It's pretty crazy. Someone might touch something nice, smell something nice, do whatever, and they feel a little nice for a few seconds or a few minutes. But if someone comes to cause some harm to them, there's a million ways they can feel way more pain than any nice feeling that they've ever felt. So the body, it's full of pain and disease. So if one wants to stop suffering, they have to stop taking a material body. And somebody might say, well, there's some ways you can enjoy in the world. There's like, you can go to the Bahamas, you can go to a nice place, or someone who understands Vedic culture, they'll say you can become a demigod and enjoy with demigoddesses and have a nice strong body, all these things. But we see that Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, they're all places of misery, no matter where you are. Even the demigods, they enjoy on a greater scale than human beings, but they're always in anxiety. Sometimes Indra, he's supposed to be the big man, the top-notch person, and sometimes he's getting completely crushed in front of all of his followers and his wives. So it's complete anxiety. Sometimes the demons come and steal his position. So, to mitigate suffering, for good, one actually has to take shelter of a pure devotee. And how does that mitigate suffering? It's because the pure devotee explains to them that this material world isn't their home. The spiritual master, he doesn't
one doesn't go to a spiritual master just to say, okay, I have this disease, or how can I be more comfortable? How can I enjoy more in material life? That's not a spiritual master. That's any doctor someone can go to for a disease, or any yoga master one can go to learn how to be more fit. Like this, someone can go to a businessman to learn how to make more money. But if one goes to a spiritual master, it's understood that this person is looking for the highest goal, the purpose of life. They want to actually wrap up their time, wasting time in the material world, and get back to their real duty, their real service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They know, I've been serving so many things in this material world. I've been serving my senses. Still, they've never given me any reward or any break. I've been serving my family, nation, all of these things in many species of life. Sometimes I serve my dog family, hog family, fish family. Now I'm serving my human family. But none of these families, none of these friends, none of these nations have actually given any real satisfaction or reward for that service. Neither have they appreciated the service, neither has the service been able to help them very greatly. So someone understanding this, they realize, I should serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the spiritual master instructs them how to do that. He doesn't say, okay, here's how you can get a nice fit body, you do this workout and that workout, and have the yoga program, boga program, and all of these things. But he shows them how they can actually serve Krishna according to the scriptures, like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada was saying that the service to the Lord is rendered in different mellows, different relationships, active, friendly, parental, and nuptial. So one can have a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's profound. Most religions don't even say much about God. They'll say He's great, He's all-powerful, no one's better than Him, and it usually doesn't go any further than that. But we can understand that by practicing devotional service, one can reawaken their eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's not something that some so-called Rasika guru comes and on the first day that he's giving class, he sees somebody and he tells them, yes, you are a gopi and you have this relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or something like this. But Srila Prabhupada describes over and over again, as it's given in the Shastra, that by rendering devotional service unto the Personality of Godhead as directed by the spiritual master, one's eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord automatically becomes realized by that person. So it's not that they have to go and find like somebody that's more highly elevated because they speak about Radharani and Krishna playing chess and all these other esoteric things. But they, by rendering service to their spiritual master and following what's in the scriptures and going along with that service, they become purified. Their attraction to the material world becomes diminished, and their attraction to Krishna increases. And like this, their eternal relationship with Krishna is automatically revealed. It's not like they run off to Radhakund and meet some Babajis and ask them. Sometimes we hear examples of that, but it doesn't work out well for anybody involved. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that by rendering service to the Lord, one's material attachment is automatically vanquished. So this is the most important point in spiritual life, is that there's no higher mantra than the lotus feet of the Guru. The spiritual master and his instructions are the active principle in the life of the disciple. And by serving the spiritual master, one can understand things as they are. It's explained that if one has a bona fide spiritual master, he's supposed to know everything because he knows Krishna. The spiritual master, he doesn't say, well, maybe it's like this, maybe it's like that. If the disciple is asking him, what's the goal of life? The spiritual master doesn't say, well, I don't know what the goal of life is, and I don't think that anyone could possibly know what the goal of life is. We hear many people say this. He doesn't say that you're probably just you have this, you're probably just this body, just some mixture of chemicals, and ultimately you're coming from nothing, so just enjoy. He speaks the truth. He gives absolute knowledge. He doesn't speculate that, okay, maybe everything's coming out of a void. Maybe everyone is coming from different species of apes, and they've just evolved over time. And maybe there's no cause for everything like this. He doesn't actually say like that, but he tells it as it is. He repeats what Krishna is saying. So Krishna explains that all the universes are emanating from him, material and spiritual. All living entities are coming from him, and that all living entities are eternally his parts and parcels. So the spiritual master says the same thing, that ultimately you're a servant of Krishna, and your duty is to serve him. But we see if someone accepts blind persons as a spiritual master, then what happens? If you're accepting a blind person to lead you on a path, you fall into a ditch, as Prahlad Maharaj explains. Nate vidu svarta gatim hi vishnum durashaya ye bahir artamaninaha andaya tander upaniyamanas te pisha tantram uru damni badha. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life, and who have therefore accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects, cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men, guided by another blind man, miss the right path and fall into a ditch, materially attached men, led by another materially attached man, are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. So we see this is the case. So many people that we meet on book distribution, especially if you go door to door, you'll see that they're not like that terrible. Most people are innocent. They're not like actively trying to ruin everyone's life. But unfortunately, they're influenced by people who are actively trying to ruin everyone's life. Like you go to their home and they're nice, they're like simple people, but you see then they have so many things like on the wall, different posters or so many books from different places, all just giving them bogus ideas. And the TV they have blaring, giving them bogus ideas. So most people are innocent, and if they're presented with the right thing, if someone tells them the truth, they can be benefited. Unfortunately, there's so much untruth going on in the name of truth. So blind persons in the guise of leaders or masters of society tell people that everything's coming from nothing. You never existed before. You won't exist later. You just exist now, so enjoy. There was nothing. It exploded. Some gases came out of that. The gases mixed together. That eventually formed planets. Those planets heated up. Some like single-celled organisms came out of the ground. Those turns into fish, then reptiles, then bigger animals, and then eventually apes became people. They say like this. But we see, before they say any of those theories, they always start it with maybe, it seems like, possibly. There's never any absolute knowledge being given. Where we see if we approach a spiritual master like Brahma, he's explaining in the Bhagavatam how everything is created. And he knows how everything's created because he created it himself. So he just says it works like this, it works like that, this element comes from that element. He doesn't say maybe, now based on our new findings, everything that we said last year was incorrect, but now we know that we are much more close to giving you the actual truth. And it's most possibly like this. And then 2 years later, something else. So a lot of these things are going on in the name of truth. Like we heard recently in a nice song that people who have the right idea will question that why should I actually listen to the ideas of like Darwin or who's the other, and these other speculators. Why should I take their ideas if they have the same limited senses that I have? I have only so much of a range of the light spectrum that I can see with my eyes. I think we all saw this in science class because we all grew up like around the same textbook generation. That you can, there's a light spectrum the size of the page of the book, and it shows you can only see this much, about an inch of the page. So they have the same defective senses as me, the scientists who are making the textbooks, who are saying that I evolved from an ape. They've got the same limited mind. Maybe they know a little bit more about some math or physics or a certain topic, but the mind has the same limitations. It can't go beyond a certain scope. They've got the same tendency to make mistakes that I have. They have the same cheating propensity. A human being, a conditioned living entity, wants to be honored. So even though he's lacking in full knowledge, he'll still present it as, this is how it is. I know the facts. So that someone can say, yes, you are very intelligent. Thank you so much. So they still have this cheating propensity. And then the fourth defect is the propensity to be an illusion. Above all of it, they're blind because they can't even see themselves. They're thinking that I am this body, everyone else is the body. Here's how you can enjoy the body. It's a blind person. How can you follow someone who doesn't even know who they are? So an intelligent person makes this argument and sings about it as well, that why should I trust this person like Darwin or these other scientists if they have the same limitations that I have? But then the next question comes, well, if you're saying not to trust these people because they're limited, then where are you getting your knowledge? Isn't everybody limited? Doesn't everyone make mistakes, have imperfect senses? So why should I take your knowledge from your books? Well, then we hear the most straightforward answer is, if you don't want imperfect knowledge, then you have to get knowledge from the perfect person. And that perfect person is Krishna. He's the origin of all knowledge. He's the knower of the Vedas, he's the compiler of the Vedas, and he's the goal of the Vedas. So if you want perfect knowledge, you have to get it from the perfect person. And then someone will say, well, how do I know that this perfect person, Krishna, even exists? You might just be, cheating me. We can tell them, if you want to know him, you have to actually meet someone who knows him. You inquire from them, like we heard in the Bhagavad Gita. You inquire from the spiritual master submissively and render service unto them. And since they've seen the truth, they can impart that to you. So it's straightforward. And so many atheists, they're saying that, please show me God. Can you show me God? Is God in my pocket? All of these arguments. But it's really obvious. I don't know why you don't hear it mentioned so much in these arguments, but it's very obvious the point that they're missing is that we're not talking about just understanding some, math equation or just getting some a dead object, but we're talking about understanding a person. The whole claim of those who are following any devotional path is that there's a supreme personality in control of everything. So if you want to understand the person who's much bigger than you, why does that question even come about? That can you force him to appear here right now? That never comes about whenever anyone's talking about a big person. Like I might say, I know the President of the United States can be met and approached. And then someone might say, oh, is he in my pocket? Is he in my pocket? It's not a good argument. No, he's not in your pocket. He's a person. And he's bigger than you. He has more power than you. So how do you meet such a person? It's actually difficult. If you want to meet a big, powerful person, it's a big deal because they've got so many people that want to meet them. They've got so many things to do. Why are they going to meet some, Joe Schmo? What do? You have to find someone that knows them. And if you're close with that person, then that person can easily show you, okay, here's this guy. Just as like a practical example, I don't know how many details of it are anyway, it's not like a big deal, but I won't say all the names. But anyway, me and another devotee, we were trying to see if we can engage this one big person in Krishna's service. It was just like a small try that we did. It didn't take a lot of time. We just thought, okay, we're near where this big person is, and they seem like if they heard about Krishna consciousness, they could take it up because this person is open-minded. It was Kanye West. We were thinking, okay, this person's house is near here. Let's see if we can get them to engage in Krishna's service. So that's a big person, famous, a lot of money. So if you want to meet them, it's not like you can just walk up to them. You need to know someone who knows them. So we know where this person was. You might even do all your research. You might say, okay, this person lives like this. He lives here. He's in this particular place. And then you go to where he is. But if you don't know someone who knows them, it's not going to work. We got to this big gated community where so many of the celebrities live. And the security was asking us, which house are you going to? And by our research, we knew that. We said, okay, it's this address. And they said, what are you doing? And we said, we're giving him the Srimad Bhagavatam. And they said, okay, we'll call real quick. And they called, and they said, sorry, no one answered the phone there, so we can't let you in right now. But do you have someone named Jamie with you? Because they said they're waiting. Earlier, they told us they're waiting on a friend named Jamie. So we told them no, and then the whole thing was over. But if we knew Jamie and we're close with this Jamie, then the whole thing's finished. We could easily go and meet them. Or if we maybe said yes, that Jamie's here, then they'll let us in, because someone close to them can easily bring you to that person. So that's the duty of the spiritual master. If one approaches that person who knows Krishna, he can easily engage the disciple in the service of Krishna. And in that way, one can actually understand everything. They can understand who is that person, the source of everything, Krishna. They can see him face to face. So, still with all that, somebody from an empirical perspective might say, okay, so you're just telling me I have to, surrender everything and believe, and then I'll find out. Of course, well, I'm not going to do it. But actually, it's not like that. They don't have to surrender everything. It's very simple. They can even take up an empirical experiment. If they just take to chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then their material illusions become purified, and they can actually begin to perceive transcendental knowledge. Atav Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayam Indriyai Sevan Mukhehi Jivado Swayam Evas Pratyada. The materially covered senses, they can never understand something transcendental. They can't understand Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes, anything about the absolute truth. But to one who engages in Krishna's service, which begins with the tongue, like chanting or taking Krishna prasadam, then Krishna, being pleased, reveals himself to that person. So they can actually do an empirical experiment. They can just try, okay, I'm not going to believe everything, I'm not going to surrender everything. They can just try chanting and hearing the Maha Mantra. It's a transcendental sound vibration. So by hearing it and chanting it, one actually becomes purified, and then they can understand these topics that are beyond the realm of the senses. So it's up to that person to actually take the shot and try it. We hear in the Vedas that Krishna, he is always escaping all sorts of personalities. The jnanis and yogis, who they can travel even at the speed of the mind, still they can't reach Krishna. Even traveling for millions of years, what to speak of just a few years on a rocket ship trying to reach the moon and all of these things. But a yogi traveling at the speed of the mind for millions of years, they'll never reach Krishna. It's explained in the Ishopanishad that he has no legs, but he outruns all others. We see this in Krishna's pastimes as well in the Srimad Bhagavatam and in the Krishna book, that this Yavana, who had a whole army of Yavanas and Malechas, he's untouchable because he doesn't live by the Vedic principles, he's dirty. Kala Yavana, he came to conquer Mathura once Krishna was there with the Yadus after killing Kamsa. And when Kala Yavana came to conquer Mathura, we hear how Krishna, he walks out of Mathura, he sees Kala Yavana, he looks afraid and begins to run. And this is described. I won't get into the whole, story, because me and Mahotsa Prabhu, when we were traveling around, we did notice that there's many temples and there's many Bhagavatam classes, but many of the Bhagavatam classes often aren't explaining the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, like Srila Prabhupada gives in his books and in his lectures, but it's usually, we kind of coined a term for it if you just look at it objectively. There's many that are kind of like a Hindu story time community hall. So everyone gets together and you tell story after story after story after story for like an hour, and then you just kind of have a good time. It's like a community hall. Of course, there's kirtan and there's prasadam, and that's nice, but the philosophy of Krishna consciousness also should be there. Like we hear in the Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhava, that this term Malpuya Mahotsava. Malpuya, it's like a pancake from India, but better. It's soaked in syrup. It's really amazing. So one might think, okay, there's a great festival going on at the temple. I want to go so I can eat lots of malpuya. And they come there and they just eat lots of malpuya and then they go. So, but one shouldn't just have a malpuya mahotsava. They should actually have a celebration where Krishna Katha is the main hors d'oeuvre. It's the main thing people are going and honoring. Not just honoring prasadam, which is great, they're making advancement, but they should also taste the Jnana Sandesh, the knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, I won't get into the whole story, but we hear Krishna's running from Kali Yavan. Sometimes stories are nice, but hour after only story, and then, yes, you are very nice, Prabhu. Yes, you are very nice, Prabhu. Everything is nice. You're okay. I'm okay. And then at the end of the day, I still have all my material attachments. That's not so productive. But we hear Krishna is running from Kali Yavana, and all those verses are there in this section, in the purports. We hear how Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, doesn't have legs but can outrun all others. What is it? The yogis traveling at the speed of the mind, they still can't catch him. So Kali Yavana, he's running after Krishna, and the whole time he's just, to him, it looks like he's just one hand's length away. And he's always saying, I'm going to catch him, I'm going to catch him, I'm going to catch him. And what does Krishna do? He runs in front of Muchukunda, great king who has a benediction that anyone who wakes him up, he'll burn to ashes with his glance. And Kali Yavana is thinking, I'll catch him, I'll catch him. He gets burned to ashes when he runs in front of Muchukunda, wakes him up, and he's dead. So, like this, Krishna can't be grasped just by the material senses. He'll always be out of their reach. But then we see so many other examples in Krishna's pastimes, like during the month of Kartik, we hear how Mother Yashoda, through her devotional service, she's able to bind Krishna with her love for him. So, the devotee can actually, can you show me God? Yes, the devotee can actually see God by engaging in devotional service. So we're giving that to everybody in the form of these books. We were asking many people when we go to their home that the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's Krishna himself. It's the literary incarnation of Krishna. So please, like we met this guy yesterday, he said he opened the door and was immediately about to shut it on us with like the most backward excuse. He looked at us, he said, I have guests, and then he's about to shut it. So we were kind of coming as a guest. Like that excuse doesn't really work. But he had some guests in his home, so we asked him, Prabhu, you know Bhagavad Gita, you're such a great devotee, please welcome Krishna in your home in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he said, no, I'm not interested, and he shut the door, so that one didn't work. But some other devotees, they actually had the whole Bhagavatam, and we brought the small Bhagavatam set to their home, the 44 volume, and they happily took that one and then gave us their big Bhagavatam so we could give that one to another person. So by distributing the books, people can actually understand who is Krishna. He's right here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Instead of applying their intelligence to so many things, like we see someone can write a whole textbook on the digestive system of an insect, or how a blade of grass gets energy from the sun. They use their whole life learning all these. Instead of learning all of these things and wasting the valuable human form of life, one can use the human form of life for its ultimate goal, understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and their relationship with Him and engaging in His service. What's that really ecstatic verse in the Bhagavatam that explains not to waste the goal of life? Dang, I'm just forgetting it for no reason right now. Mahotsava Prabhu says it a lot. Anyway. So those are a few things. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Krishna. Yeah, I've actually two questions. One, this verse is saying that you need to serve the feet of a spiritual master in order to develop the transcendental ecstasy of service to Krishna. And I mean, you see this kind of like throughout the Vedic scriptures, they emphasis on the guru, guru, guru. But then I was reading Transcendental Diary, and there was like some Dom residents, some Rajavasis, and they were simple. They were just tilling the land, and then Prabhupada said, "See, just look at them. They're Krishna conscious." And then I think one of his disciples asked, "But they don't have a guru, Prabhupada." And then Prabhupada said, "Krishna is in their heart. Krishna's guiding them. Krishna's their guru." And I don't know if you want to comment on that. That like, although you need a spiritual master to attain Krishna, those who are living the Dham, Prabhupada saying. Have you heard this pastime before? You heard this one?
No, but there's similar statements in the Bhagavatam and other books.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to comment on that, just like how I guess it's like a concession almost. It's like for most people, yes, you need a guru, but then those who are like not even into siddhas, they're just like, born. They're just like, they develop all the qualities of being totally Krishna conscious. They don't need a guru. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, if one is born in the holy Dham, that's a very fortunate person. If someone is born in Mathura, if they die in Mathura, there's a few things. If they take initiation in Mathura, there's a verse that explains like this. I can show you the exact verse later, but if someone, I'll at least go with the one that many people know off the top of their head. If someone dies in the Dham, they go back to Godhead. So they're in a very fortunate position if someone is born in Krishna's abode. So, yeah, there's no contradiction there with what Srila Prabhupada was saying, that Krishna, they're associating with Krishna. They're in his holy Dham, which is non-different from Krishna. So they're associating with him and wrapping up, whatever's left of their material life in that lifetime. And that's what the Shastra says. If one dies there in the holy Dham, they go back to Godhead. Yeah. Or there's also things, though, that explain there's a difference between being in the Dham, which being in the Dham also means they're fully immersed in devotional service. Like people say all these things about go bathe in Radha Kund, and we even hear in Nectar of Instruction that there's no higher place than Radha Kund. It's it's the best. But we also hear, as we've heard many times, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur he said those who are there for sense gratification, they're in Naraka Kund. They're in the lake of hell, actually, because they're just absorbed in their sense gratification. So he gave the proper way one should bathe in Radha Kund is that they bathe in the ocean of the nectar of devotion. They bathe their intelligence in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and in that way engage in Krishna's service. So to be in the Dham means that one is also engaging in devotional service. I remember this was one of the first questions I asked when I met devotees. I asked Gopal Krishna Maharaj that because I was instructed to do the Bhakta program, but instead I was going to do the Boga program and go and get a job in Vietnam and try to enjoy. So I told him, Maharaj, I was instructed to do this Bhakta program, but I'm actually going to go somewhere else and try to enjoy. Can one be Krishna? I of course I didn't word it like that, but I was asking, can one be Krishna conscious? Can one have a relationship with Krishna and not live in a temple? And he explained that you can live in the temple and not have a relationship with Krishna. You can live in Vrindavan and not have a relationship with Krishna. But what's important is that you chant Krishna's holy name. And then he asked, are you chanting? And I told him, yes. So, and he encouraged me to keep chanting. So one should be engaged in devotional service if they're in the holy Dham, not just that they're there and they try to enjoy. Because it's also explained, we hear it explained by Srila Prabhupada, and there's probably some verse that someone can find for this. But if one is engaging, I can at least find lectures where he explains this. If one is engaging in sense gratification in the holy Dham, like they go there and engage in illicit sex like the monkeys, then in their next birth they take birth as a monkey in the Dham or a pig or like this. And they suffer as an animal in the holy Dham and get purified in that way and then go back to Godhead. So it's a fortunate position to be in Krishna's abode. It's not different from Krishna, but really being in Krishna's abode means that one's fully engaged in Krishna's service. Those are a few
Yeah, and then
points.
my second, that's a good point though. Because I mean, even when this is a comment, even when I was in Mayapur and Vrindavan, I was just not in like Dham consciousness at all. You know, like have you been to Vrindavan before? Or?
I went to Mayapur and Vrindavan, like split it up half a month.
Yeah, so like you know, in Vrindavan there's like a lot of monkeys, and it's like a lot of like the rickshaw drivers trying to like rip you off. It's just a lot going on, and then it's like you're looking around like it's easy to get distracted. Like okay, this is it's not different from the spiritual world. You have to almost constantly remind yourself of that. But yeah, and my other question is, you were saying that most people are innocent when you approach them. I realize that as well. Most people are innocent, but then Prabhupada says that 99% of the population are like godless demons, and it's like you see this person who's innocent, but then they're a demon. So I don't know if you want to talk about that. How it's like you can you're not necessarily like the worst person ever because you're just kind of like not sure about Krishna consciousness, but Prabhupada classifies you as a demon even though you're innocent. And I don't know, I thought that was always interesting.
Yeah, if someone's engaging in all demonic activities, then it's fair enough.
Yeah, but like there are people who are like they don't really know what they're doing is wrong. Like there are people who be like, I never knew like eating meat was wrong, and you tell them and they'll stop.
Yeah, so that person's innocent. So I've heard more often Srila Prabhupada explaining like the people that we're meeting as innocent. Also as cats and dogs. All these things are there. Like we can see he has a statement explaining if one is going to preach like for book distribution, then they must know that I am going to meet with cats and dogs. Because we see that's the level that people are on. It's also explained if one doesn't have a spiritual master, then he's a cat and a dog. Because such a person is just engaged in the same thing as the animals, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, upkeeping the body. But one who comes in contact with a bona fide spiritual master, even just through the books, just through devotees, just through prasadam, hearing a little bit of the philosophy, somehow they come in touch with Krishna consciousness by a representative of Krishna, then they come to the human platform. They understand that this life is rarely attained, so I should use it for the highest goal, Krishna consciousness, and going back to Godhead. So, but most people I usually hear described as innocent. But there's reason for having all these statements too. If you look in the Mood and Mission of Srila Prabhupada, which will be out soon, there's a whole list in this one chapter of the different names that Srila Prabhupada used for this modern civilization. That's like a kind name compared to the rest of them. And they're so accurate, and they're all essential for one to actually understand the position that people are in, that we're all in, coming from this modern society. Hog civilization, dog civilization, slaughterhouse civilization. So many terms are there. And yeah, demon civilization, Hiranyakashipu civilization. Because what are the activities of people in this modern civilization? It's grotesque, So much killing, so much, activities that just increase everyone's suffering is there. But if one can meet a devotee and then get a clue to the right idea that this life isn't meant for sense gratification and exploiting things, taking more than our quota, but actually for engaging everything in the service of the person that it belongs to, Krishna, then that person's known to be innocent. And then by associating with devotees more, they can become a devotee, and then they can go and meet so many innocent and envious people and try to give them Krishna consciousness because they've understood the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So.
One thing. So you made a good point that you get more pain than pleasure from your body.
Yeah, isn't it crazy?
It's a good point because it's like how much pleasure can you, on a day-to-day basis, you don't actually get so much pleasure. You get mainly pain.
Yeah.
Like you might get a headache, a stomach ache,
So many diseases.
So many things, and it's only, I guess, the epitome of pleasure in the material world is sex life, but it's not like, I mean, I don't know. I guess there are people doing that every day, but then they're experiencing way more distress than pleasure from it. But my question is like, it's stated that in Earth, it was Bhuloka, that pleasure and pain is like 50% or something like that. I've heard that, but like like in the higher planets is more pleasure, and then the hellish planets is more pain. But then Earth is particularly made so that you can experience both, so that you can, because the people, when you're experiencing too much pain, it's hard for you to practice Christian consciousness. If you're experiencing too much pleasure, it's hard to practice Christian consciousness. But Earth is made so it's like you're getting both. I don't know. It's like it seems kind of contradictory because it's like on one end it's 50-50 pleasure and pain, but you're only getting pain. You're only getting pain, and I don't know if you want to talk about that. Just,
That's explained that in the heavenly planets, so much sense, so-called enjoyment. I mean, really, to call it enjoyment is a little bit of a scam, because you're saying you're going to go to these heavenly planets and you're going to enjoy like anything, but then you get there and you're just in anxiety. This demigod, he's playing the murdunga better than me. This demon, he's planning to come usurp the whole kingdom and like destroy everything. You're always in anxiety. And then what kind of anxieties do you have if, you have all these apsaras, but they're the most beautiful, and we understand from the Vedas that actually if the wife is very beautiful, she's one's enemy. So then one's always afraid, who's some bigger demigod might come and, take my wife and beat me up, something like that. And it happens, we see. Even with Indra, these things happen. And he's the big boss, no one's bigger than Indra, at least in the material world. He's got a thunderbolt for a weapon, you can't mess with it. Still, this stuff happens, he's in anxiety. So it's not really enjoyment, but they have so much so-called enjoyment there that the opportunity to focus on self-realization doesn't happen. The more one's engaged in material sense gratification and surrounded in opulence, the less likely they are. It's an impediment to devotional service. What is that? Does it start with Bogaishvarya? Sorry. But anyway, beauty, wealth, education, fame, all these opulences, they're actually impediments to devotional service because they make one think, yes, I am the owner of this. I'm the enjoyer. I can have a good time. What do I need Krishna for? So that's why we see, it's not the only reason why Queen Kunti prays to Krishna for more suffering. She's a pure devotee. She can always think of Krishna. But she gives this good reason that, please give me more sufferings, because when all of these things were there, my children trying to be poisoned with a poisoned cake, people trying to burn down our whole family in a burning house made of lac, being attacked by Rakshasas. When all these sufferings were there, then we could think of you more, because you were our only shelter. So we can see it really is like that for a living entity or a devotee or anybody, that when there is less sense enjoyment, they can easily focus on the Lord. I've heard devotees give that example with book distribution too. Sometimes if it's like an austere situation, then they're more fired up on books. I've seen that, especially at music festivals. Those places are so disgusting. I won't say any examples, but sometimes the place is so disgusting, you just become fried out, and okay, I need to get these books out. There's nothing else worth doing. So it's like that. So the Earth is kind of like that. It's kind of like the music festival part of the universe, where it's a gross situation. We've got these gross bodies which get disease and die and all of these things very quickly. So it's a good opportunity for a living entity to engage in tapasya. I'm not going to try to enjoy. Instead, I'm going to undertake voluntary suffering for the purpose of self-realization. Voluntary hard work.
So we're supposed to have the understanding that the spiritual master is perfect, but you might get some materialists who say, or also Christians who say no one can ever become perfect. Like that.
Isn't Jesus perfect? They say.
Yeah, but they think Jesus is God. So that's
some of them.
Some of them, yeah.
I didn't hear that one in church, honestly.
Me neither. Actually, I met a Christian yesterday. He was a Lutheran, and he said that he never had the conception that Jesus Christ was God.
Yeah, I never
anyway,
heard
that's,
that. But
that's
yeah, you're saying.
But my question is that there's scientists and Christians or whatever. They're saying you're supposed to know a person who knows someone who is perfect, which is Krishna. Krishna is perfect, and the spiritual master knows Krishna. Mm-hmm. So what if they say that how The spiritual master is also like, he's a human being. He said, oh, he's
Yeah.
limited. So how
Okay.
can you understand someone? How can a limited person understand someone who's perfect?
Yeah, that a person can be perfect. Why? Because you get the qualities of what you associate with. Your association determines your desires, your qualities, and these things. Just like an iron rod, you put it in the fire, it becomes fire. Whatever you touch catches on fire, and then it also has the light of the fire. So it has the qualities of the fire, heat and light. Similarly, whatever we associate with, we take on those qualities. So if one is associating with the Supreme Perfect, they also become perfect. They don't become... Krishna is always infinite, and the living entity is infinitesimal. They're small. But they become perfect in the sense that they take on Krishna's qualities. They also get those same qualities. He explains in the Bhagavad Gita. So by engaging in Krishna's service, one's associating with them, and they take on those qualities of Krishna in a minute degree. Like in the Nectar of Devotion, it explains the exact percentage of the qualities of Krishna a living entity could have. So, yeah, they're associating with the perfect person, and they also become a perfect servant of that perfect person. And then they can deliver other living entities, show them how they can engage in Krishna's service. So they're free from all of the material defects. Why? Because they're associated with someone who's free from all material defects.
Yeah, it's just interesting question. But yeah, like Christians, they don't have that conception at all, because like
They
they're
say
like,
Jesus is perfect, so
yeah, but
they
anyway,
should
most-
meet someone who's like Jesus.
Exactly, yeah. But most of them don't even. They just like, they're like, okay, we're born into sin, and like that's it. We're like imperfect. No one else can be perfect. Like, it is what it is. The only way to like attain salvation, the only way to become perfect, is if you surrender to Jesus.
Yeah, if they want to become, if they want to stop sinful activities, then even before finding someone who's like perfect and all this, if they want to stop sinful activities, then they should associate with people who don't commit sinful activities. So you can tell them that, and then they'll say whatever excuses they have, and then you can tell them people who don't engage in sinful activities. And then they can come and associate and not engage in sinful activities. That's at least a good step,
Yeah.
How are they going to follow someone who says, like, thou shalt not kill, if they're busy, buying burgers and all of these things that are made from a factory that's made for killing 24/7? Anything else? Comments, question, chastisements? Mataji, any comment, question? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha. Kripa sindhu.